2021. Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The minutes are carried. Move on to correspondence 5.1. The attached is a letter that has come from Participation, and more specifically called Participarks. They reached out to us for, they narrowed down our community as a community that they really like to see the collaboration and the amount of activity that went on with all the people that participated. So this is simply a support letter that they have presented to us, so that it's essentially about a 5-year plan that outlines how they can add additional parks with different municipalities, different reserves, specifically our tri-community. So just kind of today looking for if there's any opposition to this support letter.
No opposition necessarily, but is our Parks Plan consultants looped in on this?
They can be, yeah. These were, it was a very like, he just shot me this email.
Yep.
And was like, hey, can we get this going? And it was so, but yeah, no, it's a very good point. And our parks are, what is the specific name of our?
The 20-year Parks and Rec plan or the RC strategies?
No, the new position that's come on.
Community
Service manager, yeah, so he'll be looped into there once that gets, question?
I noticed there's quite a bit of reference to tri-communities, like a program like this. Are we applying as a town or are we applying as a tri-community?
No, so there's no application at this point. It's the first part is just going to be figuring out like the design of it, where it can be, and like we're not even selected yet. They've narrowed down a group of 10, I think it's 10 different communities from I think there was 2,200 across Canada that participated in Participation, and they, based on where we like our level of integrating with all the different programs, they wanted to reach out and see if we were interested. So the support letter is just essentially there to say that yes, we want to further the conversations, and yeah, that will be passed to our to follow the things like our master plans, our RC strategies, our highway development plan, because I even mentioned about the highway development plan where we've requested a paved trail between all the 3 communities, and he sort of talked about well, then we can incorporate work out different parks along the way. And yeah. So it's a way for us, like when we had the conversation, I just said there's a lot of stuff that's really going in our direction, and I think this would be a great way for us to integrate if we can get some essentially free stuff.
Perfect.
Okay, so I don't think, do we need a motion on the table to support this? I guess.
Oh, that's a motion.
Okay, so if I can get a motion on the table to officially support this letter.
Also,
Okay, a second.
I'll second that. Oh,
Thanks.
sorry.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion's carried for the support letter. Okay, so we move on to the second support letter, which again combines with the previous one. The Highway 102 corridor improvement project that's happening. There's a second level to this, which is now going on to the various bridges and the Highway 102 north of the section that we've already been consulting with them on, which is really beneficial to our region as we look at tourism and the different economic impacts that can have. So the minister did reach out asking for our support with that as well. So how we can be involved in that. I think again this is a great way for us to work with the ministry in that way. Does anybody have any questions about this one?
Support letters.
Excellent.
It's very critical. I just think about the life of that bridge, and you look at the road north. There's so many opportunities that are missed because of the condition of that road. I've been traveling the last few days, and you're just going like this. When I take my wife's car, and of course you go all like this, and it says you're going to stop for a coffee because you got that safety thing. But that's just what it is,
Yeah.
And, so yeah, if we can get on a program to get some of this work done, that it's just great.
Absolutely. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll call the question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried for the support letter. So we move on to 5.3, which is the fence encroachment 519 Orange Avenue, which is before us. So I'll pass this to Steve to get a little more information.
I think I would ask just to, we can bring this discussion up at the, this is gonna be report here a little later on in the agenda. This was handed to me literally yesterday, and in good conscience, I brought it forward because she was pretty adamant she would like to have discussion for tonight rather than make her wait a full month. So
Okay, so this will be added to.
I think we can bring it up in the discussion a bit later on around Ms. Spooner's offer as well. It's the same contracts. It's down later in the agenda.
Okay, all
We
right.
discussed it there.
Okay, so we will we'll speak about that one as we get down to that item number. Moving on to 6.3, which is the new website development report, which we had discussed a couple of weeks ago at our committee of the whole. Brianna, is there anything else you need to bring to our attention than what's involved in this report today?
Not that I can think of. Nope.
Nope. Okay, awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Brianna?
No questions. I think it's a pretty good idea for the town to move on this. You know, when you compare history of what you spent, if you're not getting value, like, I mean, if you're spending too little and not getting enough to really provide the service, you can't really compare it to, you know, the higher value and getting and more quality. So I think it's a direction we've got to go over. I support.
And in all honesty, I can, you know, I can understand people's frustration, you know, when you're trying to input, you know, something in the community that you're not happy with, whether it be snow removal and stuff like that, like trying to do it by phone. So I'm assuming, you know, from what we were given, the new site will be, you know, phone friendly as well. So allow you to take a picture and have that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of missing capabilities on our existing website, whether it be people that employ ad blockers or the search function is useless. You cannot find anything with that search function that you're trying to if you're putting in a keyword. So that's going to be very important, I think, for people to be able to use the website better. I do have one question. I didn't notice, what kind of contract are we entering into with this? Is this 4 years?
For your contract.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, excellent, Brianna. Thank you for bringing us forward. I think that with everything that you've been bringing to the table so far too, I think that anything that you're going to bring forward to help push that economic development, I think is really important. So I do really appreciate your time and making this more accessible, and that way we can reach more eyes as well. So thank you for that. So we'll take a motion on the table, please.
I'll move.
And so I'll just get you to read the whole, just because I did not read the motion. Yeah, sorry.
I'll second
I hear you say.
I've got it here. So the town award the development of the town's new website to all net systems.
Yeah, I'll approve.
Okay, seconder, perfect. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Move on to 6.4, which is the public relations and communications issue reports come from Steve Brown. Is there anything else that you want to add to this?
No, I think this discussed last meeting, this is just to dust it off and get official approval.
And then further down the line, we're going to start developing policy for that so that it's available for everybody.
I'll move to recommend that administration be authorized to move forward with the professional development of the administrator's assistant.
Okay, seconded.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay. Motion's carried. On to the Highway 102 report. Steve, is there anything else that you want to add on to this report before us today?
No, I think it's just a long time coming. It's been about 6 months of time put into this. And 4 proposals, all were good. This one just stood out because of the knowledge and also some of the people that bring it to the table to enhance the economic development to kind of give us some options. So, and 2 individuals from the planning perspective on this are 2 of the most respected individuals in Saskatchewan.
Fantastic. Any questions for Steve?
I'm excited to see Alice part of this.
Mhm.
And I'm excited for this as well. So
I'll
Administrator,
move that
go ahead, Brent.
Oh, no, I was just
the
gonna.
Highway 102 economic master plan be awarded to Crosby and Hannah for 95,800 plus taxes.
One second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And motion is carried. Moving on to 6.6, which is the building and development report. And is Robbie here today?
No, he wasn't able to make it. I'll do my best. And if,
Okay.
if anything I can answer, we'll.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about what's currently presented here?
We have a, pencil as a notice, just a little side note, we have a lot of demolition happening in the town this
Mhm.
Mhm. Which I'm happy to see.
I've been listening to it in the morning while having coffee.
Okay, so this is just a receive and file.
Correct.
So we need a motion on the
I'll
table.
move to receive and file the building and development report, and permit report.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure there's 6.7 building demolition request. You want to speak on that one, Steve?
This is just after fact, again, I talked to, Mayor, you were out of town at the time, talking to the mayor. So typically when a property is gonna be demolished, it has those same taxes that go for council, but there was an offer on the table to purchase this property. And so I let the individual take the property down, and we are gonna get our taxes out of it, tax essentially we can get the next little bit development. So it should have come to council first. I do apologize, but this is one of the things that it was kind of timely that we need to move on it because it was actually affecting the sale of that property. So it is being sold right away and it'll be your taxes.
Questions?
Where are we gonna do that?
We're on 6.7 the building demolition request.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome to the table.
Thank you. Sorry for being late.
So what would happen if there wasn't an alternative, say if somebody prematurely went out and we did
For
did
demolishing
something
it,
like that?
there would be fines and we'd actually force it to the bylaw.
Questions?
I'll move that we approve the demolition.
I'll second that.
Deposit to be paid in advance, the water line will be terminated. The name and cost of the applicant, so that's,
Okay, and Viviana, you second that?
I'll second that. Yeah, it's like the audio is kind of muffled, so I'm kind of having a hard time hearing. So I
Okay.
apologize. Thanks.
We'll try to speak up a little bit
Yeah,
too.
we're mumbling.
Yeah. So we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Moving on to 6.8, which is the offer to purchase report for the shoreline. And this is where this is also. There's also this is.
Yeah.
There's what you saw there, so, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so per council direction, we solicited offers for the shoreline policy. Shoreline property adjacent to a couple properties on Avenue. I did seek an appraisal of one of the properties because there was some interest to purchase it, and the appraisal came back at $60,000 for that parcel. We used Suncor appraisal. Ms. Spooner put an offer here in just before the August council meeting. That's also what you're seeing there today at $10,000. So I do want to stress that the appraisal came back at $20,000. That would be what we're on the table discussing today. But the appraisal came back at $60,000. So what I'm recommending is for council to authorize myself to go back with a counter at 60. This is not where we're going to end up, but at the end of the day, this is what the appraisals come back at. using not only comparable sales data for land here in town, but also outside sales. So any questions? This
Yeah.
also goes into Laura Hagan's other statements that offers.
So I have a couple questions. The first one being, how much is this every time we do evaluation like this? How much does that cost us?
$2,500.
Okay, my next question is, the requests that had previously come in from Ms. Spooner was that it was not going to be a desktop analysis of that. So why did we still carry the desktop analysis in that one person?
Because it was actually $5,000.
Okay.
So this is where we're getting a reasonable estimate of what's going on. I mean, we can ask for a full-on estimate, and then likely the number's going to be bigger. There's a good possibility this is to get a reasonable estimate of what's going on. And at the end of the day, they use, I mean, it's all about land sales data. They pulled up an obscene amount of land sales data to get the unit cost. So this is all about cost at the end of the day, getting a reasonable estimate for what's going on. And if we want to, we can go back and spend the extra money to do a full appraisal, but the appraisal companies indicating they're likely to go higher. I mean, until we actually get the numbers up. So I'm not an appraisal company, it could go lower, but it's another couple $1,000 to do the full appraisal.
What's the status? The ratepayer said they were going ahead with an appraisal for themselves. What's the status on that? Is there any
I
update
got
on
an
that?
email as of late last week that she was just starting it.
So she's carrying out her own appraisal?
Yes.
Okay. So in good faith, I'm confused why, oh no, so I apologize. So she initially came back to us with 10,000 and now we're making a counter and she's going off with another appraisal.
She can get her own appraisal back, she doesn't have anything. So
So, well, I'd like to maybe suggest differently. This letter was received August 13th. So this was way last month before the last meeting, but it never came to the meeting. So there has been, I don't know what the communication necessarily has been, but it's been suggested to me that there has been communication back and forth with the suggestion, no indication that they needed to go through their own appraisal until some indications came up and then they went and pursued the appraisal. So I think out of respect for them pursuing that, we
the
should.
indication the discussion council has been, they want to share the appraisal that I have. And the discussion was that you decided to do their own research to get their value. So I mean, negotiating land sale. And she has reached out to an appraisal company as early as August, but she didn't actually order a formal appraisal, but an email format from.
So this was shared with her?
Yes.
And she hasn't come back, she hasn't come back with an offer, she just said that she's gonna do her own appraisal.
Yeah.
When was the appraisal shared with her?
Last week, when we did the council agenda.
So Friday last week?
And I only got it not too long.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so she wouldn't have had an opportunity to really respond.
Right, which, I mean, in negotiating power, it's showing 130,000, 190,000. 60,000 being sort of the median between what she initially did. Doesn't mean that we can't move again on it, and then if she's in whatever she presents with her appraisal, I mean, we could counter back and say it's 130,000 or 190,000.
that's the incremental value, so that's the increase. So yeah, no, that's what I told her. So this is not a starting point. This is not the end of the deal.
So, I mean, the way I see this, and to be clear, I remember this coming to us before where we talked about selling municipal reserve, and I was opposed to it at that point. Will the council to move forward with it? So if we're at that point now, and to foster some good development on the discussion there, one of the things that I would think of in this is the town has a due diligence to the taxpayer and the ratepayer to make sure that we have a land appraisal done and say that, you know, this is roughly where it should be sold around, right? Whether it's 60 or less or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the appraisal that we have on that parcel and lot of land. If an individual, whether it be the person that is the adjacent property or somebody from Toronto wanting to look at purchasing land, they can have the due diligence themselves to go out and get it appraised themselves and counter and say, this is the appraisal I got, and that's negotiations. So for me, I think I mean, I personally believe that something of this nature, in my opinion, would go to an in-camera discussion. It's kind of negotiating a sale of property. And with, I mean, for me, where I stand at face value is to counter at the appraised value. If we can get what our land is appraised at, I think we should be there. If we can't get what our land is appraised at and we want development or we want whatever, then I think that that's something that is solely amongst the parties that are involved in the sale of land, whether it be adjacent properties or, like I said, somebody from Toronto, whatever, right? That's my personal opinion on it.
What I'd kind of like to suggest is before we move forward with anything, is that we hear her, what she presents as well. Because for all we know, the appraisal that she comes with could be the exact same as us, and then we've just cut the value of our land in half by countering right away. That's kind of how I see that too, in proper negotiations. But it's will of council, so.
They cut the value in half? Where?
So recommendation from administration right now is to counter at 60,000
Right.
from 10,000 that she's already come at, right? The appraisal is at the amounts that are set out in that report there, but she's wanting to do her own appraisal, which she's more than welcome to. We don't have to even look at it if we don't want to.
Mhm.
I don't think we-
But to me, I'd rather see another report, but again, we can't trust, I don't know, sometimes we can't trust what says on paper, right? But
I don't think we would have privy to hers, right? She wouldn't have to give us what
She can choose to should have, should like, but I mean, and this is where I go at with this, is that, to me, if we are selling municipal reserve, once again, this is one of those things where if we're gonna sell it to one and have that opportunity for one, we should have in some ways, shape or form, to anyone interested in purchasing municipal reserve, this is, you know, these lots are now available for purchase, right? Because, for example, you know, if I do own a boat, if I wanted to have a shoreline lease and have my own dock to maintain, if we are selling municipal reserve, that might be an interest of any boat owner in our community to be able to have access to the shoreline for their boat, right? And that's where, to me, why I was originally against the sale of it. And the only thing that I would say is that if we do go forward with the sale of municipal reserve, even to adjacent properties, we should look at subdividing costs and having that at the time of sale, so that it becomes part of that whole parcel. Because if someone decides, oh, I'm gonna keep my shoreline because I still have a boat, but I'm gonna sell my house and property, then they're not tied to each other, right? And that's, I could be wrong on that, but there needs to be language that's clear that this, if we are selling it to the adjacent property owner and that's the intention and will of council, then it needs to be reflected in our policies or sale agreements.
So in perspective of just responding to that, there's a couple of things in this specific instance. I'm trying to think of this other one as well. I'd have to look at that. When a parcel does not have road access, the province will not let us, it will not be allowed to be subdivided. It must be tied or amalgamated with another adjacent property that does have access, legal and physical access from the road. So the parcel, if that parcel, that shoreline lease parcel was subdivided off, the provincial government community planning branch would not allow that to happen without at the time of subdivision, a parcel tie to the adjacent property, or building a road across the existing municipal reserve to provide access to it, or being completely amalgamated and absorb the two parcels being combined into one. So there's I think protections within the act that would allow that to be taken care of without having to worry about those repercussions. I appreciate, you know, bringing it back to the higher level, bigger question of, do we as a municipality want to start selling our municipal reserve? Is this something that is in the interest to our taxpayers, our recreation land users, so on and so forth, also our ratepayers along the shoreline that have purchased these properties and maintain these properties for, you know, it does boil down to that question. So I'm kind of on the fence with this as well, with wanting to know from a site visit based appraisal, will it come out about the same if the ratepayer will share that with us? If it does, then yeah, but at the same time, we also have to remember that we as a council, if we are to sell municipal land, it's to be sold at fair market value, which doesn't necessarily mean the market value on paper. It's fair market value. So within the community, we know our community better than appraisers do in a lot of instances in what we can do. So we do have the ability to debate where that fair market value lies. Maybe it's between 10 and 60, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. So like, I don't have anything necessarily to say specific to this, but just in the bigger, let's think about this, there's a little bit more.
Yeah, after our discussion, because we've been talking about this for a while, and you know, we looked at the map, seeing, you know, is the town going to build a trail down there? Do we have that ability? Are we going to buy land back? Like, what's going to happen? I would like to move forward personally and allow these people the opportunity to buy. Because that would go into municipal reserve, and then we'd be able to purchase more ourselves if we decided to do something else. I understand your point, Jordan, but I just don't understand why somebody would want that chunk of land just for a boat, because they'd have to walk across somebody's property. And I don't think that would technically happen. Like, I feel kind of.
Here's another little clarification, Mr. Mayor. So there's two types of way of appraising this. Right now, the only one that has any value on it is to the actual adjacent property owner, because there's no road access. So if we were to sell it as is right now without no access to the actual property, it's worth the land. The only value is to the adjacent property owner.
Yeah.
That's what the appraiser came back and said. There's two ways of valuing it, and the obvious choice was to the adjacent property owner, because there's no access to it.
By road.
Right.
You know, and so moving forward, I would like to start, and I would like to start at the market value that we were given, and open up the conversation and get things going. I'm not saying that we have to take that, but at least it's a start. And if she gets back a report that's different, than she, in all fairness, has the ability to then give us what she'd like to pay, and then we can, you know, move back and forth on, right, and have discussions.
I think we definitely got to get it right, because I mean, this is the first, and we have to set the tone on the value, or else we're going to have floodgates coming in. People think they're going to get land for nothing along the shoreline, and and it's going to be, and the town is going to be out. So I think we get it right. I know if you really look at, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about it, when you add that to the existing property,
The
part of
value.
it, that value is added to that whole property, makes that property more valuable.
A
And
lot more valuable.
so I think, you can downplay the value of that land and just say, well, that can't be worth $50,000 there. But if you had an appraiser to say, okay, after we're done, come in and reappraise that whole parcel, it's gonna be more than that likely.
And then they go to,
Sorry, Councillor Reese.
Personally, I think that this is a much larger discussion. We've seen several requests come in. My concern is that if we start approving requests, it's going to set a precedence, and we will continue to have requests. So I think that we maybe need to have a conversation around, do we want to be selling municipal land, or do we not? Personally, I don't think that anyone should own the shoreline. So I am not in favor of the sale.
So I think that, just to sort of wrap that up, because I think that this has come to the table quite a few times, and we can't just stand on the fence forever. The other thing that I do want to make clear too is that the report has come back at the appraised price. So as most people have said at this table right now, if there's an appraised price, why are we sort of negotiating from that? and then setting a different precedence to what is being presented to us when we're going to professionals. And then the last thing I want to bring to that is that there is still one more step, right, to this. It still has to be approved.
Has to go through a bylaw, then it has to go to the provincial government for.
Right, so we don't have the final say on this, but we do have the final say on what we're gonna accept, for the price.
I think we're past the point of deciding whether, I think we've already made a decision to offer for sale, so I don't think we can step back from that because letters have gone out, we've done appraisals and whatnot, so
We spent money on it.
I think we've got to move forward and then see if we're, where things fall from
I do
there.
too. So I'd like to push forward with this, and I do also agree that maybe this should be an in-camera conversation about the prices that we're gonna go back at. So, in fairness, is that what you're kind of getting at, that we should be talking about?
If we're gonna be discussing a deviation from our appraisal, the appraisal is a public document because we spent taxpayers' money on it, they can see that. So I think if we're staying at the appraisal, then I have no problem moving forward on the basis of going back at what the appraised value is.
Next steps now, we're going to need data that we're establishing a threshold here.
And that's what I'm saying, is that if it's the will of council that we might deviate from what we have as the administrative recommendation, then we take that from in camera. But I mean, as it stands now, I'm okay with going forward with the administrative recommendation, and would be willing to move on that front.
Okay, so let's, if there are motions on the table, let's get them up there and let's get started.
So I'd move that administration be authorized to counter with the I won't use names either. The purchaser for the adjacent shoreline lease property at $60,000.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further questions, comments, concerns before we call the question?
I know this might seem a little late in the game, but because this is dedicated lands, having somebody from community planning branch advise us on whether or not we need to debate pricing in public or we can do it in camera. I think there is a gray area I don't understand. Because dedicated lands have their own regulations and their own regulations with legislation. So we should be very careful as to what we do, just so that we do not violate the ACTA regulations when it comes to dedicated lands.
Yeah, and I'm very conscious of that too. I don't know if that then delays it even further here. We table it so that we make sure that we're following proper procedures.
Yeah, I would double check, but my last time we talked to Mr. Gunter, the final bylaw, when we go through to do shoreline leases on that enclosure, I'll have to be. But I can follow up.
Well, so there is a motion on the table though, however.
We're not accepting the offer, we're just establishing parameters.
Yeah. So the
Okay,
motion is
so-
to continue with the negotiation, or
The motion is to authorize administration to counter at $60,000.
Yeah, so I will call the question on that, and I'll see where it falls. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion is carried. And then let's just figure out what the proper procedure is there. Okay, we're gonna also then bring Laura Hagland's letter to the table as we're talking about offer to purchase shoreline property.
My suggestion is to receive file.
Okay. Because I think that we go through the same process that we just did. Okay, so I need a motion.
And sorry, just so I know in context of the letter, I see fence encroachment. Is this to basically do the same thing and purchase rate to like purchase the municipal reserve? This isn't just like, adding a foot to the property line, but still keeping the shoreline. This is to do the same thing.
Right to the shoreline.
Okay. I would say that.
File and receive.
Well, it's file and receive, but I mean, would this constitute a proper offer to purchase? Because if it does, then we've already set precedent that we'll go to an appraisal.
Right, and that would be the next step, so we have to get an appraisal, right?
Yeah, we've already got the authorization of what's the appraisal. This is initiate the dialogue, so now I can go back and like literally came to me late yesterday, so.
There's no way that problem.
I'll make a motion to table this to the next meeting with instruction to administration to provide a report on appraisals and options on that.
Do I have a second?
I just,
I just need a second, and then we can talk about it.
Whole second.
Okay, go ahead.
all right, I think when you look at policy, I mean, we're dealing with one property, we can't go to another property and say, well, we're gonna let you out for this much because we gotta be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So
gonna set-
whatever management's got in terms of, if there's a counter offer and it brings that level down, we might be able to move somewhat on the value of the other one. But I think they have to be fairly consistent.
And that's what I was going at with the reason for tabling is I don't think that we have, or we're ready to make a motion. And I mean, if somebody is willing to make a motion, I have no problem withdrawing mine to table it. To basically we're at step 2 of one of these shoreline issues, and this is step 1, right?
Yeah.
We've had the offer to purchase, now we need to know what's worth before we counter.
Yeah, we can't
that.
counter offer without knowing.
And that's what I was saying is, I think step 1 is now to get the appraisal on that land. If somebody's willing to purchase it, we need to get it appraised, which is if we're going to table to the next meeting to be able to get that appraisal. Then I don't know, do you need a motion to be able to find that appraisal? That's just normal operations, right?
Not very emotional books in the spring. Right.
Okay, so then, I mean, if that's, I will keep that, that we table this until we receive a proper appraisal on the land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the,
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Just a quick follow-up on that. If there's anything else like this or any other lands that we need to potentially appraise, if there's cost savings to do multiple at once with this firm, are we taking that opportunity? Just so we're not reactively spending one ratepayer's taxes every time we do this. Because this, the cost of it is like basically one average property's annual tax.
Is that properties can change in 12 months. I mean,
Yeah.
given things that we could get all raised right now, 12 months later,
Mhm.
20% increase since we had
Yes.
raised, so.
But do they offer like a bulk appraisal?
Not to my
Like if
knowledge.
if we have 5 landowners come to us and say, hey, and we can do it all at once.
I can ask, but I mean, not that.
No, that's what I was kind of.
Okay, great, we're moving on. Let's, which is 6.9, which is the half-time stuff report. That is, well,
I can speak to it.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, just strictly is, so we're just seeking council's approval to purchase the fleet for the airport. It was budgeted a little bit under, but the purchase for the 2 fleet trucks in the public works side, Josh is approved, was under budget, so we're just seeking authorization to purchase and use the others for the other 2.
so the only reason it came to us is because we didn't, it
Wasn't enough.
came over budget in that one
If it was
department.
under budget, it would have come out.
Okay, yeah, if we have savings in other departments, then I have no problem with administration be authorized to award the purchase of airport pickup truck to South.
Okay, I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's carried. Move on to 6.10, which is the 2021 safety manual report. Steve, do you want to speak about this one?
This is a, so I talked, staff is about a 5-year project. So when I came here, I had a couple of my former colleagues screened the safety manual as it stood. And one actually put about 2 weeks worth of time into it to clean it up. So it's not perfect by any stretch, but it's a lot better than what it was when I found it. So this is one that OHS is actually keep giving the town extensions after extensions after extensions. So I'm comfortable enough that it should be passed here tonight, just because of the number of lives over the last few months. So
I'll make a motion that the attached safety manual be approved and adopted.
Okay, so I have a second.
I'll second it.
Just, I guess a kind of interest on it. So we had went out and this was, I know, an initiative that we had from our previous members of council. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a fair chunk of dollars put towards building and starting this through a project team and all. is there no, like, I mean, if it comes back, and then this is maybe just, I guess, if it comes back and it does not meet the occupational health and standard safety measures and doesn't reach the level that we've contracted somebody to do, at what point do we now say, okay, well, we had to put our own resources, whether they were at no cost to the town or at an additional cost to the town? Is there not, like, I know it's intellectual property, but is there not warranty on that kind of work, that if you provided us a document that does not meet that standard, what's the recourse for the company? I mean, if you contracted me to bring you a governance bylaw, and I brought you a picture of the council table and said, there you go, that's not a safety document, and I charge you 30 grand for it. How do you go about holding that accountable?
Well, I mean, typically, you should be, right, you should be holding accountable from what I understand, somebody, previous management or previous council, again, I can't speak to it, signed off on it, paid the previous contractor, let him off work, and then left it down with fault. So typically, you're right, we should be holding accountable, but we paid the contractor full a while ago now, and recourse now is going to be somewhat challenging because we don't have any holdback on it in terms of leverage. Right?
Okay, no, that's,
I mean, you have a very good point, but it's the point I'm more interested in making sure we're compliant with the witness.
yeah, no, 100%, but it's the issue of the safety manual in and of itself. I want it to be there, and taking the safety as our top priority here is one of the things I want. I don't want to see injuries or worse at our place of employment. And I hope that our safety manual meets the standards and OHS is happy with the town of Orange and all compliant. So was there a seconder to the motion already?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is there an overseer, like, we can, our policy or be sent to somebody to say, okay, does it meet the standard? Is there a watchdog in regards to that?
If it falls to your OHS committee, making sure they're up to snuff. I mean, and in large organizations have a safety coordinator, but OHS committees typically are abreast of that kind of stuff. And right now, we need to engage an outside party to make sure we're also abreast on training. We have a long ways to go with our safety culture here. So typically resides to keeping the two co-chairs up to snuff in terms of where the trends are going, stuff like that. They're getting abreast and training. So
I think the important thing is that, you know, we are addressing by redoing, you know, this document here, it's showing that we are moving in the right direction, and I think that speaks quite loudly. And, you know, if there's some things that need to be tweaked, but at least the effort is there, and you know, having a plan in place to start training staff, that's quite important.
Do we have, sorry,
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, do we have a joint management and staff committee that has minutes that can show, you know, where there's, like, to me, that's a good feedback loop of, you know, how safe our operations are, and seeing if there's things like when we come to our budgetary discussions, if there needs to be additional dollars put into safety equipment or training, that we can see these minutes and say, like, look at this has been raised a few times, we need to move on it.
So there is a joint committee, as we're big enough to require the law to have one.
Yeah.
There has been no money put into even training those individuals up to know the task.
And that's something that we've outlined in our budget recently.
Is being addressed here before the end of the year.
My question actually just follows nicely into that. So for 2022, our budget is going to contain a significant line item. Based on what is in this report, we're gonna have to dedicate a significant line item to
Well, I'm
the training.
Yeah,
That needs
Councillor
to
and
happen.
I just had a discussion with ATAP this morning, and we're going on this right here. We have training stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
there will be a budget item there, but I'm not waiting for budget. We have to get going first because a lot of things we need to get.
Getting the co-chairs first is.
Co-chairs,
yeah.
and we have, there's lots
Okay,
of stuff, and we'll have a budget item for sure, but there's stuff that right now we need to get going.
okay.
Any further questions? All right, question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. We move on to the base tax report. Steve.
So just very quickly, this is for property that are condo here in Orange, from you, so typically base tax is applied to one site. What's happening here is there's 3 parking stalls that are additional. They're getting hit with base tax as well as the condo. Typically, it's all lumped into one, and it's all one site. So this is just to amend 3 base taxes and just to made it back, because the parking stall separately along with the condos also getting the base tax, right? So the parking stall should get the assessment on it, right? There's no doubt, because there's value there for the parking stall, but then on top of it, it's getting hit with 750 base tax, and the main condo unit itself is getting the base tax, as well as getting duplicate charges.
Right, go.
Well, no, and-
Go
Are
ahead.
there other properties that are paying 2 base taxes?
We are looking at a few others right now, so we're going through a cleaning up right now. So these are the 3 that came out when we looked at the taxes.
Am I not mistaken that those parking stalls potentially were supposed to be the commercial component of that mixed use building? And that's why they might have been classified that way in the beginning?
Could very well be, but from an assessment standpoint, the parking stalls are supposed to be included with the assessment stall. I just got told late today from Sam, those are 3 additional stalls, but still relate to the overall condo. So they could very well be, but they are assessed as multi-unit residential right now. So not see if it's a commercial parking stalls.
That was supposed to be a mixed use building.
Can speak to it.
I'd like to make a motion that the administration be authorized to abate back the duplicate base taxes charged for the 3 properties at 515 Orange Avenue.
I'll second that.
Any other further questions? Okay, call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, say nay.
I'll abstain.
Motion's carried. We move on to 6.12, lower purchase report. This is, I mean, pretty straightforward here. Anybody have any questions for Steve?
Just if I can, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
This is coming back to council because we're not taking those tender.
And why?
So you might ask the question. So reason is that it comes down to service and warranty. The one that's lowest is actually quite far away from their dealerships. They're looking at 2 to 3 days for parts, and the warranty wasn't anywhere near as good as the one from John Deere.
Okay, any questions for Steve on this?
I will move to, oh, I just closed it. To authorize acceptance of the bid.
So the purchase of 2 loaders for the
Yeah.
Public Works Department be awarded to Brad Industries for upset amount.
Yes, thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Okay, move on to 6.13, which is the Public Works Supervisor Salary Report. So this is to reinstate the HR report and Public Works Supervisor position, which was previously removed. Temporary CAO.
And clarify, Mr. Mayor, the
Yeah.
position has already been approved back.
Oh,
This is actually just bringing back the wage rate. This
I see, sorry.
direction.
Okay, is there any questions for Steve on that?
I'll move that the administration be authorized to reinstitute the supervisor position in the town's organizational structure, and that the updated pay band be brought back to council for approval.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Can we just admit Robbie, he's in the waiting room, please? Okay, we move on to 6.14, which is the Truth and Reconciliation Day report. Steve, did you want to speak about that as well?
Just very briefly, I did talk to, as indicated in the report, the HR service, full authority for the town to direct staff to plan events and stuff like that for the day. However, when I talk to their municipal counterparts and private business, the overwhelming majority is just giving staff the day off with a direction to attend or just a request to attend the events. That being said, it's got to my attention today that there's going to be a number of staff that irregardless can't take the day off and off because September 30th is the last day of taxes. So we're going to be busy here anyways in terms of town hall. Recreation has got 2 major events in terms of, I think, the high school's meeting that day. There's something to do that they can't take off, and then garbage also to shut down for the day. What do we do with our garbage? So my response is if council were to go to giving a day off, we would allow or request the staff that have to work for the garbage run and the in taxes that I think I indicated last time, we give grant a day in lieu for those that can't take off due to operational necessity, because there's some that just won't be able to take it.
So can we not take the lead of what the band is doing, for example, where the day off is happening on October 1st?
Yeah. So I really if you wanna.
Sorry, November 1st. Like, and make it the sort of like any other long weekend sort of situation where we give a day off in lieu somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a
Is
certain
that a
amount.
possibility? Is there any will for that? I don't know. What's
I
the-
think that takes away from the symbolism if we were to move it that way. If it were a one day to moving it to the Friday, I think that would be okay, but I think that if we move forward with this, we need to do it right, is my opinion.
Right, and I agree with you. I'm just trying to understand it from, like, obviously the day is the day, and then it just becomes a day off and move somewhere else, which is what the band is doing. So the band is taking the Friday off. And then the 30th, like, I don't know what their operations are, but there are events happening on that day, on the 30th specifically, as it should be. But I don't know if they're making anybody work. I don't know. But
I do like the idea of the time and lieu, you know, if some can take it off that day and then partake in the recognition. I think that's great, and those that are not able to take the day off, then they do get a time and lieu day that they can take off. That would have to be used up in the fiscal year.
and who's deciding who gets that day off and who doesn't? Is that your job?
That'd be, yeah,
Okay.
administration.
Any other conversations on this?
I just want to stress, that conversation is actually coming from staff.
Mhm.
They want the day off, but they're also saying that they still have critical things to be done.
Mhm.
Is there a way we can move forward with recognition of the day this year and institute like the proper policy for next year? Because we are still not, I don't hear any confidence in anybody as to the best way to implement this. And overwhelmingly, there's recognition that we want to recognize and honor the day and step up to that call to action on it. But in the interest of getting it right, find a way to balance what we do this year with looking at the long-term benefit and impact of how we do it.
Mhm. Sorry, just we got Councilor Reese hands up.
You're on mute.
All right, I'd like to put a motion on the table that the town of La Ronge recognize September 30th as Truth and Reconciliation Day for town employees to use as self-directed reflection on truth and reconciliation is the motion I'm putting on the table.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you know, I think we're all in agreement that, you know, we need to recognize it because we live in Treaty 6 and it's important to us. So for this year, it aligns with what the band's doing. I mean, if we want to defer it to October 1st, I'm in favor of that. But then next year we can align ourselves and we got a little more time and hold that September 30th.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bashara and Councillor Gradisky. I think this year, if, you know, I think we should keep it on the day it is, give the time and lieu that has to be used within this fiscal year, but next year, let's, you know, it'll give us time to plan ahead and we'll know that this is going to be a day off and we can make those adjustments in the future.
I appreciate Councillor Ruiz's intent of the motion. I think it needs a bit of clarification if we are to vote on it, because I'm not sure exactly what we are voting on with the wording of the motion that's on the table.
So I guess to clarify, so self-directed reflection allows employees the opportunity to select how they would like to reflect.
So is this a paid day off? Is this a?
Yeah, it would, just like any
Holiday.
other
Okay, but
statutory
we should be
holiday.
very clear in the motion, exactly what the implications are.
Regardless of whether we said that it was an unpaid day off or not, which I think it's a stat holiday and we do have to pay it.
Yeah.
Because it isn't a provincial stat, anyone that works does not get time and a half, it would be the time in lieu. And because under legislation, if we are changing the schedule within a 2-week period, which this certainly is, it would be a paid day anyway, regardless of how we decided to go about that. So I think operationally, that's.
Just to reflect again, I had written down that self-directed through reflection through a paid day off, so I would have amended the minutes. Put it there through a paid day off. So I mean, that's what I'm hearing, otherwise that's not where the motion is.
Okay. For 2021.
For 2020, it's just been listed as September 30, 2020.
Okay, so we are not amending, it's as is, and then it's, or we're amending it to that.
Could,
We're amending it to that.
Yeah,
Could
we
we-
can amend the motion.
could we, so a friendly amendment, can we read the motion that is on the
Tyler
table?
Ronge, allow the recognition staff, and again, Councilor Viviana, correct if I'm wrong here, Tyler Ronge recognizes September 30th to allow staff to participate in directed reflection through a paid day off. I might have missed a word or two in there.
Nope, that captures my intent.
Okay, so I need a seconder for the amendment, right?
And if we're calling it a friendly amendment, then, and then everyone's in agreement, then I don't think we need to do the full.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we'll call the question, all in favor, say
Just-
aye.
Of the amendment or the
Yes.
motion?
Of the, well, if we're doing a friendly amendment, then it's.
Okay, so then if it's of the main motion, I do have one question
Okay, go ahead.
before we go to the question.
Yeah.
If we are doing a all town staff get the day off, and we have the intention of giving people the time off in lieu that can't do it, do they have the right of refusal to say like, it's been recognized as a day off, I'm not picking up the garbage today, or it's been recognized as a day off, I'm not collecting taxes at the front desk? That's what my next question is we might have those operations to do. And to me, if you are able to do that, what I don't want to see is like, we are extremely short notice if we go out, like, it has to go out tomorrow morning, that if there is a chance that we won't have the office open because people have refused to come in on that day because it is a day off for everyone. And if we're giving the opportunity for everyone to have that day off for those purposes, then that's where I'm at, is if somebody says, I respect your need for garbage collection today, however, I want to observe the Truth and Reconciliation Day, where does that fall? When there might be a disagreement as to what actually needs to be done that day.
Well, I mean, Councilor, right now, the staff are the ones that actually come forward the same day, want to continue to work services on Thursday. That's what happened today. So I mean, I'll certainly have a discussion with them. I think as long as the staff is not penalized for not having a day off, so again, if they have to work or there's a strong urging to work, like i.e. collecting taxes, as long as they are able to take the additional day off and are penalized, I don't foresee any troubles.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
staff coming forward to me today indicating this is what's happening, we'd like to continue working, or we're gonna change the garbage pickup. I'm like, well, that's a very good point. We'll talk about it tonight.
I was just gonna say, Steve let us know that it was the staff that came forward and good for them, saying, you know, like, we do have lots of work to do. We appreciate the day off, but so if we could, you know, give them a day off within this fiscal year.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is
Yeah.
that the time in lieu has to be used by.
That's the way to carry it over.
Yeah,
This fiscal year.
Okay, we'll call the question, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Okay, and sorry, I just want to add one little just point of interest on that, that's for our staff, that there are a couple events happening on that day. The Keegan is having a pancake breakfast from 8 AM until 8:30, and then there's also events happening on our reserve as well, that I would highly recommend our staff and council to attend. Okay, we move on to financial statements and updates. So August 2021 budgetary report number 1. Any questions for Steve on this one?
Quick, I just want to highlight one point. There is a significant amount of under budget for wages, strictly due to vacancy. Between $300,000 to $400,000 in under budget. Anticipating by
Okay.
it is strictly due to vacancy.
Yeah, which I'm sure you're feeling a lot.
There isn't like one position there that's like,
Combination of one position staying vacant, it's a combination of people just cycling out and stop working and all that kind of stuff.
okay, because I know that we've had like the deputy CAO on the previous book. I don't know if that's been completely removed, and I thought, well, that would make sense because we've had that sitting there, but that's
Any given point, counselor, this year, public works has been short of 4 to 5 staff a day.
a day.
Is,
Do we have an attendance policy?
We do.
Okay.
I've been trying to enforce it, trust me.
is there opportunity to get casual help through agency or temp or something to help alleviate that and use?
I'm gonna tap right now, if you're helping out right now to help them refine their operations and work a little smarter, not harder right now, so they've been on site last week. And I actually plan on keeping here till the end of the year because they just need help refining what they're doing, and determining priorities, but I've asked for temporary help just due to sheer distance of getting people up here. It's extremely complicated.
Okay,
We're trying every which way we can. It's just, don't get me wrong, we have poor staff there that show up day in, day out, and do great work. But it's just, yeah, I mean, it was from 4 to 5 staff a day, we're short from sickness to.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle everywhere.
it would be,
Sorry, 4 to 5 staff organization wide.
No, just public works.
What's the total staff there?
There's about 13, 14, some days she can't do it.
So on most given days, you're at 33% short.
Some days we have 1 or 2, there's always 1 person, 2 people. Like,
Okay.
you know, over the summer months, I was getting an annual or daily update on it. I was shocked, and some of them were valid, some of which, I'll be honest, I won't say names, they just didn't want to work that day.
And that's why I go back to the conversations on the attendance policy.
And
But if there's already the checks and balances and they just need to be executed,
we
then
were,
that's-
counselor, we were 24 hours away from moving away from one individual. We were following through with our HR service. We were very close. We have been diligent in terms of enforcing the rules for attendance.
okay, that's all I'm.
I think that's great that there has been a focus put on that. I'm interested to know if some of this budget surplus for staffing can be redirected towards outsourcing a strategy and some solutions potentially, so that come 2022, Public Works is not understaffed or has more support in policy and resources to be able to fill and keep those positions filled and.
So I can be, I'll be very frank, the problem right now is determining when to use a contractor.
Yeah.
When to use staff. And
Okay.
that's right now what ECAP's doing, is
Okay.
they're filtering through the fact and
Yeah.
the milk right now and actually getting to this and work and say, okay, you don't have time for this, hire a contractor. The argument I got was we don't have budget. Well, my argument is we do have budget because we've got $300,000 in vacant wages over here. Get the work done.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what their job right now is, they're filtering through right now and saying, okay, what's the priorities?
Mhm.
How to manage the day-to-day stuff, follow the policies that are in place right now. And like I said, they're gonna be out here to end of the year foreseeing it, just to strictly keep people's head above water right now. And help them prioritize what needs to get done and work on the processes, so.
I appreciate that that's being done to try and maintain some minimum standards with our service levels, so. Pat on the back to everybody that's hoofing through that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the issues. I mean, not just in, well, big issue in the tri-communities. There are vacancies everywhere, and it's a struggle.
Canada.
Canada
US.
as well, I mean, it's everywhere. I always say this, that there's a lot of people that want a job, there's not a lot of people who want work. And it's a sad reality, and I think, you know, I mean, Steve and your team, I think are trying to do everything you can to keep your head above water, so, thank you. Okay, we move on, 7.4, list of accounts, or sorry, we have to receive and file first.
We can just do a blanket motion at the end to receive and file all financial statements and reports, right?
Okay, yeah, does anybody have any questions about any of the list of accounts for approval, list of payroll checks for approval, and August bank reconciliation?
I don't. I'm comfortable making the motion to receive and file the financial statements and updates.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion are carried. A bunch of new business, which is 10.1, notice of decision for 115 Finlayson Street. Ooh.
So basically on this one, if I can, the only decision that the town has is whether we want to appeal that decision, right? I think considering everything in the analysis and whatnot, so I will ask administration the recommendation that we have.
I think the recommendation for it is to accept the decision at this point. I don't know if it's worth the fight.
Didn't we had no issue with this, it just didn't conform, correct? Yeah.
That's correct.
Oh, we can't have a negative motion, so do we receive and file if we don't, or do we have to have the motion to appeal and defeat it?
I would say receive and file.
Okay, I'll make a motion to receive and file the notice of decision.
Can I second it?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. The last one on the table before I go to the camera is a verbal report for myself. It's surrounding a very imminent. I don't know how I'm eloquent to say this because it's based on the homeless shelter discussions that have been happening with various vested community members, leaders, agencies within the tri-community. I did have phone calls with every one of you here about some information, and I now have more information to provide because last night sort of outlined more information about the homeless shelter. So basically, since we are live too, and I just want to make sure that anyone who is coming into discussion understands what's going on. The overnight shelter program that was typically ran by the Keekanuk, it was decided from them via a letter that they were no longer going to be running the services. So a task force of a committee of people came together to try to figure out a solution, and have been meeting every 2 weeks for the last almost 2.5 months. So with that being said, conversations have been happening. We've been trying to find funding sources. And where we're at now is that there's a proposal on the table that's being written to try to get funding from the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. And it's complicated. It's complicated for many reasons because unfortunately none of the agencies that are part of the conversations are able to be a accountable partner. And I was a little misinformed when I spoke to all of you about what that actually means. It's not necessarily just getting a check and dispersing those funds. There's more to that. You essentially become the employer. You take on the liabilities of that money. You take on the liability of WSAB. That's my saying right.
WCB.
WCB, thank you. I knew you were going to get the credit correct. Thank you. Also, I don't know if we have we don't have a full HR team here. There's a lot of moving parts of that. That being said, if we do not have an accountable partner, it means that we don't have any funding proposal that goes in, and it means that we have people potentially sleeping on the street in -40 again, because this has happened multiple years. Now, that being said, there is one more thing that I do need to add. There was a letter that then came from the Keekanuk stating that they would like to step up to the plate, quotes as it has been sent in the letter, that they feel that they need to step up and do it. and apply for funding. So we've seen this before, and again, I'm reaching out to council again to see if this is what your thoughts are on it. If it's something that we are interested in doing for the interim, which would be 6 months until March 31st. It's something that I need to also bring to the table to Steve and our very short-staffed, as we're understanding, of our organization to be able to take it on. Orange initially said that they were going to be able to do it, but as of this afternoon, has said that they cannot. The band also is taking it back to their administration to see if they can take it on. We'll be having a conversation after this meeting tonight as well. So Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, I was just gonna ask if we had heard back from the band on that yet.
Not yet.
And you know, also to add to that, it was thoroughly discussed who would be able to take this on. They reached out to Wapping, ESIP, North Sask Special Needs, and all these agencies are struggling at the time. The plates are full. So yeah, this is, and basically the way it's set up is we have to have our proposal in by the 30th. So we have tonight and tomorrow night, and that is it.
Deputy Mayor, I'd like you to speak up because you were part of the conversations yesterday, and I want you to bring some of your concerns. Sorry to put you on the spot with that, but
That's fair. We've had issues with our poverty in our area, and I think it's been highlighted over the last couple of years by many people that have brought this to the forefront of the discussion. I know that this was something that was every councillor was acutely aware of over the course of the last campaign, and that we had some very good, strong advocates in our community reaching out to every single one of us and asking us to take a leadership role on this. And to me, a leadership role is making sure that not only on files that are that we're municipally responsible for, homeless shelters, to me, do not fall under municipal jurisdiction. The worst part about this is that if you neglect, and in this case, if we neglect our parks, our grass grows long. If we neglect our water and sewer infrastructure, we have water main breaks. If we neglect a homeless population, people can die in northern Saskatchewan. And the issue that I have here is not with any person involved in the call yesterday, nor around this table. I don't think it's our job to do this. In our last term, we had the community alcohol management plan. I think it was one of the first meetings that I dealt with as a councillor, where we started to have conversations on how we regulate the sale of alcohol and cannabis in our municipality, in our region. And because Laurent was on the list for a license for cannabis, and we have the only liquor store and liquor establishments in our region, in the town of Orange, we have to take a leadership role. We spent lots of money and lots of hours and lots of time through many agencies to come up with policy options. Those were brought to this table. We spent, again, a lot of counselors' time, administration time, and brought that back to, we spent legal fees on bylaws. All of this to regulate the sale of alcohol, which is something that the province is supposed to do. And it hasn't happened. Next, we go and in our community, we have had previous council members. In our last council, we've had your father come in and talk to us about a long-term care facility and then dire need that we have here in our community for it. And then the Hallelujah chorus came last budget, where we had a provincial government that said yes, or not provincial budget, the last provincial election, where we had the government come forward and say, we are planning to build a long-term care facility in your community. And I think every person that has signed a petition, that has talked to local town councils, that has talked to provincial governments and MLAs that sit in the House, every person at that point saying hallelujah, because it is desperately needed in our community. But there's one big giant asterisk on it. By the way, your region owes $3 million potentially to build this in your area. We don't build hospitals. We build rinks. When we have our budget that we just talked about coming forward about the Mel Hagland Uniplex and looking at 10 million or whatever, this is taking away just the long-term care budget in our region is taking away the opportunity to provide a community hall or a music venue for our residents because we have to contribute to a Saskatchewan health budget. It's not our jurisdiction. And here we have a homeless strategy. Again, municipal leaders, this is being downloaded to the decision makers at this table, and our taxpayers and our ratepayers and our administration staff. We don't have the capacity to swing at this level. We are featherweights competing in heavyweights. This is not fair. And the unfortunate thing is that at a certain point, we reach a breaking point. And if it was about a rink, if it was about the water main and the parks growing longer grass, I think our residents would be able to last until the next spring and the next budget. The unfortunate thing is that right now, we are in a situation where we don't know what our homeless population is going to do. And I understand that there's other organizations that have stepped up to the plate, as it's been quoted, to provide that service. And I hope to hell that this winter, there is a place for the homeless people to stay. But it's downright shameful and disgusting that we are here almost on October 1st, and we all know that we trick or treat with snow on the ground, and we don't know where people are going to be in 31 days. We don't. And I know that this discussion is going to a place of, do we become the employer and the accountable partner for a homeless shelter in our area? My answer is no, we don't. But we need the province to step up and make a long-term solution here, or the federal, or if Scott Moe and Justin Trudeau need to sit in a room and talk about who's exclusively jurisdiction in our area. Maybe they need to do that right now, tomorrow morning. I don't care when it is. It needs to be figured out, because this is real consequences. This isn't long grass. This isn't water main breaks. This isn't things that, this is life and death, and this needs to be dealt with. And finding that long-term solution needs to come like yesterday. And I hope that however we move forward on this, that people have a dignified place to sleep. And I know that that's long-winded, but once again, I don't see it as our jurisdiction to provide that service. And we need to, if it's a letter of support or requesting a meeting, that's step one for me. Thanks, President.
I do appreciate that, Jordan, and I do understand. But for example, today I go to the food bank and there's a man sleeping in that little walkway there, asking me for food. You know, I sit out front of the Pewaukon and I visit these people carrying bags they have nowhere. And I'm sorry, but I don't trust our provincial government. I don't have any faith in the federal government to do it. You know, who's going to step up for it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Provincial government?
Let me just go to Councilor Reese first.
Okay, hi. I do agree with everything you're saying, Jordan. I feel that the provincial government has abandoned us as Northerners, and I'm beginning to feel that more and more often each day. However, with that being said, if there is a problem, an issue, a concern, someone who needs help, someone who is hurt in our own backyard, literally, right? We need to do something about it, because if we don't, who will? So I think as an interim, temporary, accountable partner, until a board or another entity or nonprofit organization is established, can be our contribution. And it's a start. Because if we wait for the federal, provincial governments to step in and do something, we're going to be waiting a long time, and we're going to see people freeze to death this winter. And I think we all know that that's a real reality for us with our temperatures and our conditions. And I don't think that that's the human thing to do. So putting politics aside, we need to think about the humanity of this and how important it is in terms of helping temporarily. It's not a permanent obligation we're taking on. It's temporary. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Your words are wise, and it's the risk of stepping in to do it once as a temporary accountable partner. And guess what? Next year, again, we're a temporary accountable partner. And the ratepayers in this municipality are not the ones solely responsible. We pay our taxes up to the provincial government, to the federal government, to take care of people and their health and their social needs. And I've been saying this since the beginning, that I truly, as a community member, will do what I can to support those that are vulnerable. But as a municipality, we have to be very careful where we walk, because we are going to walk into the tar pit and get stuck. We're gonna end up being the ones who always have to take it on, because we did. And the province loves to download. They love it. Municipalities have taken on so many roles and services that the province has the mandate to provide, but because we are a creature of the province, that we exist at their will, it's a very common thing to just, oh, we'll just download this, we'll download that. And if we take it on, we run the risk of having that responsibility permanently downloaded on our ratepayers. I think it's great that we have members of our council at that table, but I think we have a stronger role to play with our loud voices, with our clout, because La Ronge is not a small player in the north, really. Like, we have the ear of some important people, and I think we need to use our voices for that good more than we have. And I think that table needs to shake things up, say something, do something, run a campaign to get this done by the people that are responsible to provide those services, because our homeless population needs it. And we all want that to happen. We all want to see them safe. So
I'm gonna give Councillor an opportunity that I want to come and talk operationally, and then I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
I sort of agree with a lot of what Andy was just saying here. I think what we really need is a strong communication strategy. We got very little time. It's got to be high level and bring this point out. This dire situation we're in terms of vulnerable people being addressed.
So I'm gonna come to you, Steve, just so that you can give council what that looks like, because I don't know what that means. If it's something that we were to vote on tonight, is it something the administration can do? Is it gonna completely blow you guys out of the water, or the way you guys already are? What is your feelings on it?
As I said right now, it would be very, very tough to do it. I'm looking at trying to get additional help right now from finance, just because I know we're getting into a busy year. I'm looking like I'm going to be successful in getting some short-term contract help. So if we get that on board, we can probably walk it a little bit. I don't think we're going to be able to run with it. But the individual I'm talking to right now is looking at coming on in the very near future as a contractor until we fill the permanent position. But right now, we're going to be pressed because we got a by-election getting ready for right now too. So it's going to be tough without additional resources.
And I'll just bring just a little more clarity too. So where we're looking at the accountable partner interim would be from November 1st until March 31st. So just so you guys are aware of that timeline as well. And I agree that this isn't our job, but we also have to remember that we have 3 days, and then we have 30 days until it's minus whatever. And if it doesn't happen, not to say that it is our responsibility by any means, I agree. But if we don't have any options, then what? I really don't. The only thing that I can really hope for, and what I would love to throw some support behind, is supporting the Key Connect in their road to 107 to the plate, because if that is the case, I am all for it, because They have done it before, but what I don't want to see happen is two agencies, whoever it's going to be, whatever potential accountable partner is going to step up, compete for that money, and that doesn't make any sense because it also derails everything that's happened. So there's a few games that are being played here, and I don't want there to be games. So I'm trying to get those conversations happening and kind of try to get you guys in the loop. But there's a lot of unknowns with only 3 days until the expiration date, and it's really, really hard because I've reached out to the Keegan a few times now without any yes, we're doing it 100%. So that then, yeah, as a municipality, then we can support like what we did in January 2021 is we were at a meeting with them saying, what can we do to help? Because we are here helping. We need, if you need us to lobby for more funding from the province, I think that's what our role could be, and we can start a communication, we can do all that. What I'm worried about though is that if that isn't the case, then there's nothing, and then we have people potentially dying. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, please. I agree with all of you. This is a provincial or federal responsibility, but we are out of time this year, honestly. You know, and keep in mind the people we deal with. We had the Minister of Social Services come to our meeting, and his comment was, these people get themselves in this situation. We have a huge battle against us. You know, they sit down there making 200,000 plus a year, nice roof over their head. We need to do something. We need to act now. And then yes, use our voice. But it's going to be a long, hard battle. I can guarantee that.
If I can, there's a couple of things that I think to understand the scope of what we're really discussing here too. Two things that I need to bring up is we have had information from Keegan, if I'm not mistaken, that they have submitted a proposal to the same.
They haven't officially, they've asked for support.
Okay.
So we don't know.
So we have an organization that's willing to provide that service here, provided they get the funding. And the funding that the Kiganak is going for is the same funding that the town could potentially be putting their name forward as the accountable partner. All of that fails if neither of the organizations get the funding. We're back to square zero, right? And to me, I think that if we have an organization that is willing to take on that accountable partner piece and provide that service from November 1st to March 31st, once again, I don't know if it's municipal jurisdiction to do so. If we already have one player at that table. The second thing is if we are in the next 30 days looking at some level of a homeless strategy here, and we should be tasking our administration not to be looking at what it's going to take to be that person. Should we get the funding, we should be tasking our administration, what in the world are we going to do if nobody gets the funding? Because it's fine to say that, you know, in one of these situations that we saw earlier this spring and where we are today, this is an $800,000 item. That's nothing we can take on. We can't run a shelter at 800,000. If we get the funding and we're the accountable partner, we might be able to crawl through this winter and get people a place to stay and have that available. We might, if we get the funding. If we don't, what are we going to do? What is, you know, this is, we've had plan A. If Kiganak gets it and they run it, great. Plan B, the town is on the proposal and we get it and we run it, that's plan B. What's plan C? And to me, if we have plan A already, that we have a proposal from somebody in our region to provide that service, we have somebody willing to take that over. So what we should have our focus on in the next 30 days is what are we going to do as a municipality or as a region, should that fail? Because to me, and I don't think we have the capacity to do both in the next 30 days of looking at what it would take to be the employer as well as the financial partner and have a plan C. I don't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if we're gonna have the capacity to do that.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna ask two things of the council today. One, for administration to draft a letter of support for the DCAP. That we can give that to them because that is essentially what they have provided that they would like letters of support so that they can get that funding. The second thing I'm gonna ask the council today is hopefully, I'm hoping a backup option because I really do hope that if anybody knows any of the people on the board, which I'm happy to supply those contact details, to reach out. And I'm going to continue to reach out because I just want an answer if they're going through, if they need any help with their proposal writing, because it sounds even from our standpoint and where even the village is standing right now, that we just don't have the capacity to do it. I haven't heard from Vance, and then we're having a meeting after this, so I will find out more. But if that is not the case, and that's not happening, we're not able to, and they're not doing it. The second thing I'm going to ask you for today is if we are going to be, if there's potential for us to be that interim accountable partner. And I mean, there's mixed feelings at this table, and it just means a yes or no, and then you know that will put a lot of stress, I think, on administration because we've asked them that. But if we don't do it, then what? So first, I'd like to, if someone is, well, I'm going to pass the chair actually, so that I can ask the second form myself. Right? If I pass the chair to you, I can put a motion on the table. Okay, so I'll formally pass the chair. I'd like to bring a motion to the table that we put a letter of support together for the Kikanak for the hopefully true success of the funding proposal that they're reaching out for further incremental funding for the MS.
As the chair, I can still second a motion. I'll second that. Any discussion on the matter, on the letter of support for the economic proposal?
I'm in favor of supporting Kicking Act. I think they've got the inroads to get the money, and it's probably the best opportunity to get access to the funding, and they've done it before. If you're willing to do it, I think we should support that.
They're the institution with they have the institutional knowledge of how to implement it. So I don't see why, I don't understand why it's been a flip-flop and yes and no, and you know, without having the details of maybe it's their capacity, maybe they found some capacity, what have you. They're the only ones in the community that have really stepped up and done it for the last number of years. I understand they're probably burnt out, but heck yeah, if they are willing to stand up at this point, because I feel like there's very little the municipality can do, and putting our ratepayers in the position that to be responsible for it makes it it's hard for me to support. So I definitely am in support of putting a letter of support to kick it out.
Any other discussion on the issue to issue a letter of support? Seeing none, I'll move to the question. All those in favor of a letter of support for the Kikanak proposal, please indicate now. Any opposed?
Okay, and then the second motion I'm going to bring to the table is that I am able to take back to this working committee that the town of Orange is able to take on the accountable partner for the interim, starting from it's a working. It depends when the funding gets approved, essentially, but they're indicating between 3 and 4 weeks from when the proposal gets put in. So I'm going to say it's approximate November 1st to March 31st. And that's what I'm asking the council today.
So if I can just clarify the motion, so the town of Orange be the accountable partner for the Reiki accommodation homelessness
Proposal.
Reaching home. It's called reaching home.
regional.
Reaching home is the proposal. That's the grant that they're applying for.
And it's specifically incremental funding.
I'll second.
Discussion?
So I've kind of, with the town as the accountable partner, the only way I could ever support that is if all burden is relieved from the town, that it's an in name only kind of arrangement. But that isn't really being an accountable partner, so.
So something I do want to just add to that is any administration costs can be included in the proposal, but does that mean that we can hire people? We don't know. I don't have that.
Do we
I
have the
don't that.
capacity to hire people? Do we have the capacity to contract it out and manage the contract?
Exactly, and that's the, I don't know.
It doesn't sound, based on our conversations tonight, and, you know, hearing from the rest of our agenda, we have a duty, a fiduciary duty to our ratepayers to make sure that we provide the services that we are obligated, mandated to provide.
Any other discussion?
I don't know why we get, I mean, we made a decision to support Kickanack's proposal. Why would we do it?
Because I've been asked to bring this to the table, because there is a whole group of people, about 40 people, that still want to go ahead with the proposal, because we still have not received 100% word from the Kickanack that they're doing it. So if failing that, if they're not going to do it, then this is the backup. So that's again, it's hard to potentially even make a vote on this because we don't know what that is. And I mean, this could be tabled to a special meeting if we need, but
But the special meeting would have to be tomorrow, Thursday.
exactly.
Yeah, okay, so a question of clarification and you say there's about 40 people at this table and not a single organization among those 40, except the town of La Ronge, is potentially able to stand up and be the accountable partner. That's what we're saying, is that there's 40 people
Well,
from.
there's one organization that has not got back to us, which is the band.
Fair enough, but
Yeah.
there's provincial organizations at that table. There's multiple provincial organizations at that table, and not a single one of them has the ability to say, we can be the accountable partner.
Right.
I think we should be louder about this issue from that perspective. Like, that's where we're facing a problem. We shouldn't even be asking ourselves.
What I will say is that it is not the fault of any one of the 40 at the table.
No,
They have done a tremendous amount of work to get us to where we are here tonight. And I just want to make sure that like we're.
Sorry, I am not,
Yeah.
I used to be a bureaucrat in the provincial government. I know exactly how much, how much ability they have to commit to things. Where are our ministers? Where are the ministers?
Mhm.
That's frustrating.
Sorry, Vivian, or
Sorry, yeah.
Councillor Riz, did you rise on a point of order or?
Yes, I did it. The
Okay.
conversation.
Sorry, you just flipped off your muted.
Oh, sorry. I would just like to refocus the conversation. We seem to be going out of order here, so.
So there is the question that the town we authorize. How would that look, Steve? That the town would basically be authorized, or that we authorize the mayor to inform the working committee that we're willing to be the accountable partner on a reaching home proposal? Is that what the motion would have to read?
That's what I'm reading right now, so if, let's just play it out, so if this motion goes through tonight, then the reaching home program, let's say the coalition that you're working with is successful, then we would start working and bringing people on board and start setting a process so that they quasi are becoming council's employee until such time that, you know, the nonprofit set up and move forward. So, it all depends on how quickly we get this done.
Operationally, the question that I have is, if we accept the employer status for both the financial and fiduciary duties of that organization. We handle the HR of that, we handle the liability of that, and any injury that would be paid out through WCB while the employment of the town would also fall under our jurisdiction, am I correct?
That's correct. So, but however, I've done this before. That's how we move this is to establish a nonprofit, and the town takes the lead in setting that nonprofit up, right? And basically getting that process going and moving it over into. I've done this before in terms of setting up a nonprofit and having its own board of directors, and then closing up operations and moving over to that nonprofit. So all of it's now quickly move on this. Right, so it could be for a day, it could be for 3 months, it could be for 6 months, but as telling the mayor last night, as quick as we can set up a nonprofit and start setting up the operations moving, then migrate this over. The lead partner could be us, and at the same time start to move it over and get migrated into an overall nonprofit that's controlled by the town initially, or it could be, I have to work out the individual details a little more, but it is possible to move this along pretty quick.
So on that front, if let's say we have nonprofit X start tomorrow. Board of directors, you name it, we apply as the accountable partner. To me, it doesn't pass the smell test that if we're granted it, that we just take the money and say, here you go, nonprofit. We applied, we got it, but it's yours now, you deal with it. I don't know if that would follow normal processes. Regardless of whether the nonprofit was started, unless it was started by tomorrow, with the board of directors and legal status and you name it, and then that's the name that we put it under, regardless of how that comes out. If the town is the accountable partner for that money, we can't hand it to another nonprofit. It's not like if we get it and we don't want to run it, we just hand the money to kick it out and say good luck. We can't do that, right? So go ahead.
Sorry, I thought the Making Nation said last night, it's happened before, and it is just transferring the money. As long as you have your stats filled out for them while you have it in your hands, then it's totally legit to transfer. That was my understanding.
And my understanding in that conversation was that you can take the financial aspect of it and hire somebody outside of your own organization to do that contract work, to issue your checks, to do the bookkeeping, to do those types of things, right? I don't know that they would allow all of the money to basically just be in the right pocket, grab with the left hand and pass to the next organization. Because I remember asking that in the meeting last night, that it wasn't just take the money and pass it off, right? That you are the employer by accepting that proposal.
And most of the proposals have 10% administrative fee
There is.
sort of built in.
There is.
So if you're talking $700,000, you've got $70,000 to have somebody in place to administer the money to make sure that people.
And that is in the budget, the working budget that was presented last night. And they talked about like hiring of an executive director for 6 months, a manager, a supervisor, and some staff and all that. And that would be part of the budget that would be submitted as part of the proposal. From my understanding that we would have that ED hired. The problem therein lies is, do we have the time and resources to be able to hire potentially 4 staff for the 24-hour service? So do we have the resources to be able to hire 4 staff, hire the manager and supervisor, hire the ED, find an accountant in 30 days, and have that operational in 31, right? I'll quickly go to Councilor Vetcher.
So in the discussions, because last night it was discussed that the Making Nation would get together with Charisse from the PWAP and work on that budget. So the one thing I can say, there is no longer going to be an ED. It will be called a project manager. And this is directed from the Métis Nation. They worked very hard to get this proposal put together for today in hopes that, you know, somebody can step up, whether it's the band or us, you know, hopefully, or, you know, you're hoping Air Launch. But yeah, it's all there. But I understand your point. You're feeling that we would have to carry through on the 5 months, not just be able to hand it over. We have to wait till the 5 months is up and then hand it over to the.
Well, if I can, let me put up a couple scenarios I'm familiar with. The one, Battleford Urban Native Housing Corporation, I'm familiar with them because I did some consulting with them a number of years ago. They were a flow through for a similar type project for, I wouldn't say homelessness, but sensitivity, something along, it was to do with homelessness in the Battleford Battles, and they were just a flow through for federal funding. So that being said, let me throw another one back. I mean, Councilor Philly, a great point. So we're the accountable partner. At the end of the day, we're still responsible for the money. What's stopping us from subcontracting it out as most, it's probably blue, to an entity to operate on our behalf? We're still accountable. We still hold the ball to maintain that quality there, but we subcontracted out or contracted out to an entity that provides on our behalf. We still flow through the money, but now we actually contract the services out to a nonprofit entity to operate on our behalf.
And how easy is that to get?
That's why it's not easy. None of this is easy.
So I mean, right, and so, I mean, if we had 3 months to find that, it might be a little bit more.
I mean, but in fairness too, I mean, there and I've already reached out to Lighthouse a couple times already. We've got a couple contracts for my days with homelessness in North Battleford. So it's none of this is easy. It's not going to be a walk in the park at any stretch. It's going to take a lot of time and effort, but there's ways to skin kind of the proverbial cat in different ways to put more where's one's going, but it's not going to be easy.
Any other discussion on the matter?
Nope, none from me.
Hearing none, I will go to the question. All those in favor of the town being authorized to, or authorizing the mayor to inform the working committee that the town is willing to be the financial accountable partner or the accountable partner on the Reaching Home proposal. If you're in favor, please indicate now.
I'd like to have the vote.
A recorded vote? Okay.
Sorry.
So the motion's on the table?
The motion's on the table. It is a recorded vote.
So that, this is the backup plan, this is plan B you're talking.
Technically, no, because there's gonna be 2 proposals potentially going in on that front. So it could be plan A if we're approved over the picnic. So with that, I will go back to the question as we just indicated, it is a recorded vote, so I will work in a clockwise manner. Mayor Tishniak, your vote? In favor. Councilor Bashar?
Opposed.
In favor.
Councilor Riz?
In favor?
Councilor Hudisky?
One more question. Can I ask a question? What happened to our previous motion?
It's still there.
So
It's still passed.
opposed.
I vote in favor. The motion carries 4 votes to 2. I will pass the chair back to Mayor Tishniak.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna say one more thing about that, just so you have clarity that this, I still, I think it doesn't make sense for us to have two, and there's a conversation I'm gonna have after. Doesn't make sense to have two proposals going in for the same money, does not make sense at all. So our conversations tonight will still relate to pushing for that support for the Keeping Act first, because they have everything there. And then if that falls and fails and they say, just kidding, you know, I don't know if there's a game there or not. And then that will end potentially for us as.
If at all possible, not tonight, like that was a heavy vote.
It was.
And I don't think any of us made our votes lightly, especially deputy mayor. I would like to my fellow councillors, I would like to have a continuing discussion on this, on real ways that we need to address this and how we can use our power as a municipality, as leaders in this community to deal with this, because I think we need to, whether it's an on the record or a conversation just among ourselves, to then bring a public conversation. I would like to see us have more conversations about this, because I don't think that we have talked about this enough. And it's just a reactive decision every year. And it's an issue that we are being forced to have to make, and it's unfair, and I think we have other ways to go about approaching it.
I agree with you, and that's why this working group is going to continue no matter what.
Yeah.
If you want to be part of the conversations, anyone can be. It's open.
Okay.
Let me know and I can add you to those meetings. You're right. You'll have the final say, and we're gonna.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say what you said, Mayor, is that the committee is invested. They will continue. This is just short-term plan. There's still a long-term plan to come up with. So any kind of help and support at the table would be greatly appreciated.
I got one more motion, and it's Plan C.
Okay.
I would also like a motion to direct administration to work with regional administrative levels to work on a contingency plan should there not be a homeless shelter in our region this winter.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
If there is a requirement to seek capacity outside of the administration to support that effort, I would like to have administration come back so that we can authorize spending if required, because i.e. hiring outside consultants or additional help, because our administration should be focused on providing the services we need to provide.
So are we amending that?
I think it's more of just a consideration in our vote, that there needs to be a consideration for our own capacity limits.
Okay. We'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion's carried. Is there any other things that we want to talk about here really quick? Otherwise, we're going to move to camera. So we've got that one. All in favor, say aye.
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 Stick by it, well.
Yes. Thanks.
So is somebody gonna call me on a cell phone or something for the in-camera? Because once you turn Zoom off, I'll get kicked out, or will I be able to stay on?
No, we'll leave you on, we'll just pick, this off, you just drop it off, so you're good to stay on, everybody else is off, it's just you,